we will hit the road. So welcome to tonight's webinar. My name is Dr. Wave One, Dr. Dieter. I hold board certifications in two fields, and I'm going to be talking to you guys today, about chronic medical conditions, how they are rooted in what we call reversible metabolic dysfunction. So I'm a board certified internist as well as a board certified pediatrician. There is now strong, convincing evidence that most of the chronic medical conditions that we face today as a result of metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction is just a fancy name to say energy shortages. So most of the chronic medical conditions we face today as a result of energy shortages. And that energy shortage is being driven by two core things: insulin resistance and microbiome dysfunction, or what we call dysbiosis. Those two things together cause energy shortages, which then result in all the chronic diseases that we face today. So I'm going to isolate each of them and talk about how they result in metabolic dysfunction and then lead to chronic disease. So let's start with insulin resistance. We talk about insulin resistance being one of those factors leading to metabolic dysfunction, energy shortage. To understand what insulin resistance is important to understand what insulin does in the very first place. So insulin is a very critical hormone in our existence. It sits at the pinnacle, of function. It dictates the function, the structure, the functioning of the body. Insulin is like the CEO of the body, dictates how everything goes. And why is insulin that important, sitting at the peak? Is because of the job that insulin does. And this is the job that insulin job. The job of insulin is to do this, is to mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. You see, when we eat, the end product of absorption is that glucose is released into the blood. That glucose that is released into the blood has to be mobilized into the cell. When the glucose gets into the cell, it goes through it is shunted into the mitochondria, this little organelle. And in the mitochondria, the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain, resulting in energy. Okay? An energy molecule called ATP. So glucose is very important because insulin is very important because without insulin, you do not produce energy. So remember that without insulin, you do not produce energy. So what then is insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is a breakdown in this process. A breakdown in this process of insulin mobilizing glucose out of the blood into the cell so that energy can be produced. Anywhere in this pathway where there is a breakdown that does not result in the production of energy, ATP, is what we call insulin resistance. Now, when you have insulin resistance, it results in a slew of illnesses. These illnesses, like I want you to think about insulin resistance as leading to energy deficiency, leading to lack of ATP, lack of ATP. And when you have lack of ATP, then you have a scenario where all of these diseases now come into play because of lack of energy. Now, I want to explain to us, this slide that I show. It's a slide which is a depiction of how a lot of the chronic diseases are linked to insulin resistance. And unfortunately, this slide is not exhaustive. There's several different diseases on that we cannot put them on one slide that are all linked to insulin resistance. So that's what insulin resistance is, a breakdown in this process. Now, There are two ways by which we develop insulin resistance, and I want to camp out here for a
Dr.
little
Dieter,
bit.
your screen sharing went off.
It went off.
Yeah, can you try?
Can you see this?
I can't right now. Let's see.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
I can't not.
Okay. Let's see. Can you see the whiteboard?
It doesn't seem to be sharing.
Okay, let's see whether I could stop screen sharing and start sharing again. I'm sorry. Okay. Were we seeing the screen sharing all through or just, can you see it now, my screen?
Yes.
Oh, you can see that? Okay. What about this whiteboard? Can you see this whiteboard, me scribbling here?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So where did we miss? When I started the presentation, was the screen sharing off all through or what?
Yeah, it sounds like they weren't able to see it through the whole thing. Yeah, so if you gotta,
Okay.
yeah, just reiterate some of the
Yeah,
basics.
yeah. So, okay, I'm sorry about that. Wasn't aware of that. So, let's go back. Let's go back. Then it's important to be able to see that. So, I'll go back. Um, okay. So I started the presentation just by saying that most of the chronic medical conditions that we face come from metabolic dysfunction, which is a simple term, is a medical term to say energy shortage. And that energy shortage is driven by two things: insulin resistance and microbiome dysfunction. These two things result in energy shortages, which then result in diseases. I'm sorry about the screen sharing issue. I want to pick together insulin and pick together the microbiome and talk how they bring about the energy shortage. So insulin is considered, as I said, the most important hormone in our existence. It dictates the structure, it dictates the functioning of, the whole body. So important. I consider it to be the most essential hormone. And why? Because the job of insulin is this, is to mobilize glucose outside of the blood, mobilize glucose um, to move glucose from the blood into the cell. And when glucose moves from the blood into the cell by the command of insulin in the cell, the glucose is shunted through the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, it goes through a complex series of reactions resulting in an energy molecule called ATP. Okay. So without insulin, you cannot produce ATP, and ATP is energy. And every cell in the body requires energy to function. So when we talk about insulin resistance is simply a breakdown in this process. Anywhere where there is a breakdown in this process of insulin mobilizing glucose into the cell so that energy can be produced, we say you have insulin resistance. And when you do, it causes you to have a slew of illnesses like this because of this energy shortage. Now, there are two ways in which this breakdown occurs. There are two ways in which you develop insulin resistance. The very first of them is what I call too much fat. And then the first issue of how we developed in too much, how we develop insulin resistance now leads to the second issue, too much insulin. So the breakdown in insulin resistance occurs with too much fat, too much insulin. Let's dissect both of them, how they result in the breakdown in glucose being mobilized into the cell for energy to be produced. Too much fat. Normally, a cell is supposed to look like this. When we consume more calories than we're supposed to, what happens is that the cell, those calories are converted into fat and is stuffed in the cell. Okay. So this cell becomes stuffed with fat. So excess calories get converted into fat and get stuffed in the cell. And we're consuming too much calories these days. Chronic overnutrition, we consume 20% more calories than our ancestors did. Those calories get converted into fat, get stuffed in the cell. A cell should normally look like this. And when a cell normally looks like that, when there is glucose in the blood, insulin is going to command this cell and tell this cell, hey, insulin commands the cell and says, hey, I want you to take up glucose from the blood. And it takes up the glucose. That's what normally is supposed to happen. But now you have the cell that is fat laden because excess calories have been converted into fat and now stored in the cell. When insulin comes and knocks on the door of this cell, knock, 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 I have glucose in the blood and I want you to take up this glucose. That's this cell now tells insulin, I'm sorry, I don't have any room in the inn. Where do you want me to put it? And the cell says, I really have no place, so I'm not going to open my doors to glucose. As a result, glucose accumulates in the blood. So that's how too much fat results in insulin resistance. Remember, any process that impedes the mobilization of glucose out of the blood into the cell so that ATP, energy, can be made is insulin resistance. Any breakdown in that is insulin resistant. So now this cell cannot take up glucose. And this cell is acting like a cell. This fat laden cell is acting like somebody on Thanksgiving that has had too much to eat. If you've ever eaten too much on Thanksgiving, you just feel sick in your stomach or you just feel awful, you just feel stuffed. The last thing in the world that you're thinking about doing is to put another bite of anything else in your mouth, even if that other bite is your favorite pecan pie dessert or what have you. So that's exactly how this cell is feeling. This cell is feeling Thanksgiving stuffed. And the last thing in the world that is thinking about doing is to bring in glucose. That's a no-no to it. It doesn't. And glucose accumulates in the blood. Now, there is a one-to-one relationship between the glucose concentration and insulin concentration. And that's where the second step in how we developed insulin resistance occurs. Too much insulin. Too much insulin. So when this glucose now accumulates in the blood because it cannot be taken up by the cell, what happens is it triggers the pancreas to produce too much insulin. The pancreas has to match the glucose concentration by raising the concentration of insulin it produces. Insulin is a good hormone, an important hormone, but too much insulin is no bueno. Too much insulin is like a bully to the cell. It's like a tyrant to the cell. Remember, I described insulin as a CEO of a company that dictates the functioning of that company. If insulin becomes too high, now it's like a CEO of the company that comes to work one day and he has gone off. He has gone cuckoo. He's backing orders at unreasonable orders at people, yelling at people, shoving people in the hallway, saying my way or the highway. And that kind of attitude from the leader of the organization will cause the employees of the organization to lose their respect for the CEO. And when the employees lose their respect for the CEO, they're less likely to do what the CEO says. If you had a boss who you lost respect for and the boss came to you and said, hey, I have this project which we need to turn in 60 days because you have lost your respect for the boss, You're not gonna give your all to that project. You're going to, if you're an A game person, you may bring your C game to that project, even if you get the project over the line at that 60-day mark. It's the same thing with the cell. When insulin is running too high, that's the, that's it. It's like that CEO that has gone cuckoo, that the cells, that the employees have lost respect for. The cells lose their respect for insulin. Or insulin, you want to bully us around, you want to be a tyrant. We can't deal with that kind of behavior. And when the cells lose their respect for insulin, the cells do not do what insulin commands it to do. The number one thing that insulin tells the cells to do is knock, knock, open your doors, please, so you can let glucose into the cell. Because insulin has now, because the cell has now lost its respect for insulin. When insulin does the knock, knock, open your doors, the cells say, I'm sorry, I don't got respect for you, and the cell closes its doors and to insulin knocking, and that causes more glucose to accumulate in the blood, because the cell tightens its doors even more. When the cell tightens its doors even more, it triggers even more of this process, that even more insulin is produced, even more insulin is produced by the pancreas, because there is a one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin concentration. So you have this process where there is a vicious cycle going on, where because insulin has lost its respect for the cell, it's not taking up glucose. When it doesn't take up glucose, it causes the pancreas to produce even more insulin. That even more insulin is like a CEO that was crazy at this level and raises their craziness to this level. The cells will lose even more respect for insulin when insulin is higher. Just a vicious process. So those are the two steps in which we develop insulin resistance. One, a fat-laden cell, and two, too much insulin. And you will see how this plays a role in the explanations later. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is this concept called dysbiosis. We have bacteria in our gut, about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in our gut. And I want to explain what they do first before I come and explain this concept of dysbiosis. The 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in our gut, 30 to 100 trillion that live in our gut are called the microbiome. They play several different roles. They help to digest fiber. They help to protect the gut from disease-causing bacteria by producing very special molecules, a short-chain fatty acid that goes and strengthens the gut, strengthens the connection between gut cells, and that's how it prevents the gut from having prevents bacteria from seeping into the gut. It helps to shape the immune system. You may not know it, but 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. That is 70%. The other 30% resides in the bone marrow, the lymphatics, the lymph nodes. Now, when the gut is healthy, it trains the immune system in a healthy way. When the gut is unhealthy, it trains the immune system in an unhealthy way. A healthy training of the immune system looks like this. Hey, immune system, when you see this bacteria, he's a bad dude, take him out. When you see that other a guy, he looks like a bacteria, but he's not really a bacteria. He's in camo. He's one of our friends, not our enemies. Don't take him out. So that's a healthy training of the immune system. When the gut is not healthy, it trains the immune system in an unhealthy way, which looks like this. Hey, when you see this bacteria, he's a bad dude. Take him out. When you see that other guy that, has this little structure that looks like a bacteria, just blow his head off first and we'll do an autopsy later. It's like as shoot first and ask questions later. Like it trains the immune system to be trigger happy, to put his hand on the trigger at any time. And what that leads to is the immune system now begins to attack cells of the body. Sometimes cells of the body may have a molecular structure that looks like a bacteria. A bad immune system training sees that molecular structure that looks like the bacteria and blows the head of the cell off, thinking that is a bacteria. And so, our immune system, the training of our immune system is contingent on how healthy our gut is. And the last thing is that the microbiome helps in the synthesis of B vitamins and K vitamins. Now, what then is microbiome dysfunction or dysbiosis? It is a condition where the bad bacteria in the gut outnumber the good bacteria, throwing things out of balance. So normally, good and bad bacteria are supposed to exist in equilibrium, 50-50%. The good keep the bad in check, or the bad keep the good in check, whichever way you want to put it. They balance each other out. So dysbiosis or microbiome dysfunction is a situation where the bad bacteria increase in number and the good bacteria go low. So there is an imbalance in that. And what causes that is a shortage of food. Every living organism needs nutrients. A lion in the jungle needs food, just like a bacteria in your gut needs food. And just as we showed in this slide, the food for the microbiome is fiber. Fiber. So unfortunately, in our day and age, we don't consume enough fiber. Our foods are so devoid of fiber. And when there's a shortage of fiber intake, there's shortage of food for the microbiome. When there's a shortage of food now, what happens is that the bad bacteria, that are the stronger bacteria, will survival of the fetus sets in. The bad bacteria that are stronger will hoard the little food that is there. And then to keep a hold on that little food that is there, they increase in number to have a bigger grasp on that food and cause that imbalance. And when that imbalance now develops, all of these functions are compromised. And that imbalance is called dysbiosis or microbiome dysfunction. And when you have that, you can have a slew of illnesses resulting from that. You can see on this slide here that there is a Hashimoto's. It's an autoimmune disease. It's the immune system shooting first, asking questions later. It has its finger on the trigger. It is trigger happy. Celiac is also an autoimmune disease. Other diseases on here, you may be surprised. Type 2 diabetes is also linked to that. MS is an autoimmune disease. Anxiety and depression, you may be surprised to learn that it is associated with the gut and microbiome. I personally, when I learned about this, it was very shocking. But the physiology makes sense. 90% of the body's serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter. It's the happy neurotransmitter. It maintains mood and all that. 90% of that is produced in the gut. 90. The other 10% of that neurotransmitter, some people call it a neurotransmitter, some people call it a hormone. The other 10% of that is produced in the central nervous system. So you can understand if you have, a poor gut. Think about a poor gut as a factory that is not working well. If a factory is not working well, it doesn't produce its product. No wonder you could have anxiety and depression. So, this slide here is a slide that I call the metabolic sequence of inflammation. It's driven by insulin resistance and dysbiosis. There should be dysbiosis on here, which lead to metabolic dysfunction, energy shortage, which leads to injury to the cell, which leads to the immune system being activated. And when the immune system is activated, it comes to this cell to try to solve the problem. But when it comes to this cell to try to solve the problem, what it is seeing in the cell is smoke. The fire actually started 2 houses ago at insulin resistance and dysbiosis and spread here and spread here. So the immune system is not really able to solve the problem. The insulin resistance continues and this process continues. So you're having inflammation, which is now resulting in diseases and symptoms. Now, we now have reputable science that if you were to reverse the cause of these issues, the insulin resistance, if you were to reverse the insulin resistance and reverse the dysbiosis, you could reverse the disease conditions. And the premise is that these disease conditions as a result of the energy shortage. So if I restore the energy balance, those diseases should go away. And I use this analogy. If you have a car running on the road and the car runs out of gas, that car stops. It stops not because there's intrinsic failure of the engine. No, it stops because, its power source is gone. The energy that is needed to power the engine is gone. The engine is working just fine. It just doesn't have the juice. If you walk to the nearest gas station, you buy a gallon of gas, and you walk back to your car on the road and you pump gas in that car. When you sit down in the ignition, in the driver's seat and turn on the ignition, you will hear that beautiful sound of the engine again revving up. Why? And you expect to hear it. There is nobody whose car stops because of gas, and when they put gas in it, don't expect to hear it. It's not even a thought. It's just so foreign that the car wouldn't stop. The thought doesn't even cross your mind that what if this car doesn't start? Because, it was a gas problem, you put gas in it, it starts again. It's so profound, but it's so simple, but so profound. If these diseases that we're talking about, as a result of energy imbalance, shortage of energy resulting in this disease, then it makes sense that when you restore the energy balance, those diseases will go away. And with that, I have good news for you. There is a solution to that. There is this company that came up with a solution to reversing the energy deficiency. And the company asked the question, why are the diseases that we have today? Why is it that, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, these diseases did not exist in our ancestors? I looked at how our ancestors live and said, well, what if we could replicate it? And they looked at it, and the answer was food. Food was medicine to our ancestors, but unfortunately today food is poison to us. So they answered the question, what were our ancestors doing and eating that made them not to have these diseases? And can we find the foods that our ancestors were eating that made them not to have these diseases, and package them into a nutraceutical, and use them every day? And that's how this was born. So there are two products in this. There is the first product, which we call the Unimate, and then the second product called the Balance. Both of them help to reverse insulin resistance and reverse dysbiosis. The Unimate I'll start with is made from a plant that is native to South America. And these two products are called nutraceuticals. When you hear about a nutraceutical is a product that is made 100% from plants, and in addition to having nutritional benefit, has health benefits that outweigh the nutritional benefits. So the Unimate made from a plant called the yerba mate plant. This plant is very rich in a special phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid, and chlorogenic acid is a polyphenol. Okay, chlorogenic acid. It's a polyphenol, chlorogenic acid. And what this does is that chlorogenic acid, one of the properties is that it helps in causing lipolysis, fat burning, and balancing your blood sugars. And because it causes lipolysis, fat burning, it helps to reverse insulin resistance. If you will recall, when I spent time here, I said the first way in which we developed insulin resistance was a cell that was pregnant with fat laden. It was like a cell that had eaten too much on Thanksgiving and was stuffed. And as a result, that cell could not take up glucose from the blood. And if it could not take up glucose from the blood, ATP could not be made. Well, the Unimate, containing chlorogenic acid fosters fat burning, lipolysis. So when you consume the Unimate, what it does is when you consume the Unimate, it goes to this cell that was fat laden, and that was fat laden because of excess nutrition and causes fat burning when you consume it. And that cell now transitions over time from looking like this to now going back to normal status quo. It is now free of the fat that was in it. When it's now free of the fat that was in it, when insulin comes to this cell and knocks on the door of this cell, hey cell, I now got glucose in the blood, I want you to take it up. The cell now tells insulin, I'll be happy to. I have a lot of room in the inn, and it lets glucose into the cell. When it lets glucose into the cell, the glucose can now go through the complex series of reactions through in the mitochondria to produce energy, ATP. You have resolved the first step in insulin resistance because of this causing fat burning, which has now gone and freed this cell to take up glucose. Now, by so doing, you also fix the second step, too much insulin. Remember, too much insulin resulted in the cell losing its respect for insulin and closing its doors. Because of the one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin production, because this cell is now free and has now taken up glucose into the blood from the blood into the cell, the concentration of glucose in the blood drops. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, because of the one-to-one relationship, this too much insulin that was a tyrant and a bully to the cell now drops also because of that one-to-one relationship and becomes low. Low insulin is like the CEO who had gone cuckoo, that had gone off, that the employees had lost their respect for. Is like that CEO now coming to the employees and saying, "Hey guys, for the last 1 or 2 months, I've been a jerk of a boss. I am really sorry. Please, will you guys forgive me? Let's start this thing all over." When something that humble comes out of the boss's mouth, the employees that had lost their respect for the boss gain respect for the boss again. That's what low insulin is to the cell. When insulin now is low, it's no longer a tyrant and a bully to the cell. It comes to the cell and say, "I'm sorry that I've been bullying you. Please, will you forgive me?" It's just like a bully on the playground who, turns over a new leaf and apologizes to the kids. "Hey, I'm sorry for bullying you." Kids are very forgiving. So is the cell. The cell is very forgiving. The cell now says, "You know what? I can work with that insulin guy." The cell now opens its doors even more at the command of insulin, and more glucose gets into the cell, to make energy. So just by consuming the Unimate, which contains chlorogenic acid, you're able to burn fat to be able to reverse insulin resistance. The second product is fiber. One of the things that we don't do, unfortunately, is we don't consume enough fiber. As I said, our ancestors ate a lot of fiber. So this product is made up of fiber taken from 5 different plants. And fiber does exactly the same thing that Unimate does. It promotes lipolysis and reverses insulin resistance in exactly the same way. But the other thing that fiber does is that fiber helps to lower your glycemic index. Fiber helps to lower your glycemic index. How? Let's say you and I, um, let's say you and I went to a restaurant to eat lasagna, and you ate your lasagna without fiber, without this. This contains fiber right here. Your blood sugar is going to do this, and that blood sugar may be 180. And I know a thing too about fiber. I know that it's going to lower my blood glucose. So I consume this balanced product made up of fiber, and then I eat the same quantity of lasagna. My blood sugar is going to do this, and that blood sugar may be a blood sugar of 90. The reason why is that if food is supposed to move through the colon by this speed, fiber slows the transit of food through the colon, causes food to move by this speed. The fast transit of food through the colon results in fast absorption. The fast absorption results in fast release of glucose into the blood. The slow transit of food through the colon that is secured by fiber results in slow absorption, and slow absorption results in slow release of glucose into the blood. And why is this important? Remember the one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin. When you have a higher amount of glucose, your body is going to have to produce a commensurate higher amount of insulin to deal with that. So for you, your body is going to may produce 20 units of insulin to deal with that. For me, that my blood sugar is only 90, my pancreas is going to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin, maybe 5 units to address the blood sugar of 90. Now, why is that important? Think about high insulin as the CEO that had gone cuckoo, the cuckoo CEO, like insulin acting as a bully and a tyrant. Okay. Low insulin is the level-headed CEO that the employees respect. Okay. Level-headed CEO. And so in a state of a low insulin, the cells respect insulin more and you're more insulin sensitive. So huge impacts of fiber. And then lastly, we mentioned that fiber helps to reverse dysbiosis. Why? Because fiber is food to the microbiome. Remember this slide here? Fiber is food to the microbiome. Every living organism needs food, and our microbiome needs food. So just by feeding the microbiome with fiber, you reverse dysbiosis. So that's how these two products work in combination to be able to reverse the energy shortage that comes as a result of insulin resistance and dysbiosis. So I will end by saying that if you have any chronic medical condition, if that chronic medical condition is diabetes, is high blood pressure, is heart disease, is PCOS, is migraines, is gout, those chronic medical conditions, as you have learned, as a result of energy shortage. And just like that car that stopped in the middle of the road because it ran out of gas, started again when gas was pumped into it, you can reverse and reclaim your health by restoring the energy shortage. And the Feel Great system, nutraceutical products, help to reverse insulin resistance and reverse dysbiosis will do just that. So I want to thank you guys, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and let's see. Okay, and I will pass it on to Anne-Marie to moderate from here.
Thank you. That was so good. I really appreciate that. And it sounds like the audience did too. What we're going to do next is a couple things. I want to show you some additional proof that this system works and works consistently when people use it consistently. And I would like to have our friend Keith is going to get on. And then I also have another doctor who is available for just a couple questions that we're going to take tonight on this Sunday evening. So let me first start by just showing you some additional examples of how people who have used this system. This is our speaker tonight, Dr. Dieter. And what he did, this is to the very far left, this is before he discovered intermittent fasting, 5 year. This middle picture is him 5 years, intermittent fasting and jogging. The difference between the black jacket and the pink jacket is 2.5 months using the Filgrey system, the Unimate and the Balance. And so you can see there's a difference. People are like, well, if I just fast, I'll get the same result. And the answer is they don't. This is 35 days between these two pictures. This is a friend of ours, Dr. Kinney, who used this, and you can see what a significant change as you handle insulin resistance, become more sensitive to insulin. This is 60 days. This is Kimberly, 60 days between these two. A lot of inflammation coming out of the face, and we typically see that right away. People feeling better. Forgot to warn you. So this is Kevin. Kevin is going to talk, and I'm going to show him with his foot wound that he had. This is a foot ulcer, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a second. And this is how his foot has completely healed. And we're going to put him on the spot in just a second. We see these kinds of things, inflammation gone, detoxification gone. You can see a significant difference. This one, most anxiety and depression is what Angelita was facing. You can physically see the difference in her body. What we can't see is that she was on antidepressive medications for almost a decade, and within a couple of months on the system, after a decade of being on antidepressants, she didn't need them anymore. And it's been almost 8 months now, and she's not on antidepressants anymore. Again, she doesn't need them anymore. So we see her friend Jimmy, you can obviously see the belly fat disappearing. But what you can't see is he reversed type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. He was struggling with erectile dysfunction. He was on every single med. He reversed, oddly, diabetes, eating McDonald's for lunch and dinner with this system. That's how well it works. But then he decided that he didn't want to eat that, and so has changed his diet since then. But he's been consistently using this system for like a year and a half now, maybe 2 years now, and is able to just keep the weight off, easy as can be. And we see significant 50 pounds in 50 days, psoriasis gone. This guy has had psoriasis all over, and we don't have pictures of his psoriasis, but I wanted to show you Claudia. Psoriasis is something that you get with insulin resistance as well. And she was able to take her skin. Her skin looked like this for most of her adult life. Even in her teens, she started to see this. And this is just a couple of months on the system. First time in her life, clear skin. She was amazed. Our friend Ro, we can see the numbers. This is A1C is what they use to measure type 2 diabetes. That's the number in the medical professional. We're able to see that move down into the pre-diabetes range, and now it's into the normal range for her. A1C, same thing, 12.2, which is really high, down to 4.8, which is well within range. No blood pressure. IBS relieves immediately. This is Jimmy. So after his whole adult life having irritable bowel syndrome, and within a couple days it was gone. Acid reflux gone, migraines gone, insomnia gone, down 2 pant sizes, 2 shirt sizes, and is off all meds, as well as his wife reversed prediabetes, his mother reversed type 2 diabetes, and his mother-in-law as well. Tim, we see the change off of 8 or 9 meds, down 40 pounds, brain fog, aches and pains. He was kind of the couch potato, struggling to move, everything hurt, to now he's out living his best life in retirement, in working in the shed, doing projects. So definitely different. This is Marla. Marla is in her 70s. She's 71 now. This is just 3.5 months. When she was on this cruise that this picture was taken, she was using a cane to walk up and down the stairs to get around. And now she goes out hiking and has a normal function, long COVID inflammation relieved. And when people lose weight with this system, they do not have stretch marks. So no $10,000 skin surgery when you're done. And we just see lots of examples of people weight loss, but normalizing A1C, getting rid of insulin resistance, belly fat gone, snoring, arthritis, muscle mass. So this is 3 years on the system. absolutely able to build muscle with intermittent fasting. Belly fat gone, PCOS reversed after 20 years having PCOS, 2 months on this protocol, gone. This is another, this baby, the mom of this baby had PCOS diagnosed when she was 18, was 28, struggling to get pregnant. 4 months on the system, she conceived, and this is me holding baby Sam when we were in Dallas. Paul was on type 2 diabetes meds for as long as he can remember now. He's the same weight he was when he left the military when he was in his 20s, and the man is in his 80s. So quite exciting. We see this on and on, this change in people's physique. We have kids. So we have no shortage of proof that this system works when people use it consistently. It will not let us down. It will not let you down. And I'm going to go ahead and bring on Keith. I showed you his foot wound. Keith, type 2 diabetic for more than 20 years, was diagnosed in his 30s, and he was on insulin 6 to 8 times, shooting yourself, taking shots six times a day, sometimes 8 times a day, on 108 units of insulin. And how many days did it take you using the system to get off of insulin injections?
Took me, excuse me, took me 2 days. Um, the changes started immediately, and I was just noticing by the calendar date, it's been exactly 4 months since I started the protocol. And uh, like Anne Marie said, I was diabetic type 2 for 25 years. Um, I had just gotten out of the hospital because I passed away earlier this year because of a lot of these issues. Um, but in 2018, I was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré, an autoimmune disorder, and then I was plagued with wounds that wouldn't heal, um, which you saw the picture of the one. I've had multiple ones that have now gone away entirely. Um, So yeah, after they brought me back to life in January, my blood pressure was 200 over 100 pretty consistently, and I was laying down. When I stood up, it dropped to about 100 over 60, which was a huge, dramatic drop,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
now that I'm not taking the blood pressure meds, I'm not taking any meds actually. I was on 15 meds, 2 shots. Well, 6 shots, but 2 different shots throughout the day. I was
Mhm.
also getting injections in my eyes every other month with medication to stop the bleeding in my retinas. And I was literally miserable.
Mhm.
And I was
And
so,
young, you're a young man. Like this story, you think that you're talking about an old man, that Keith is in his 50s. I mean, you're a young man. And since the time that we since the time that we met, I mean, now you look your age or younger. You're actually aging in reverse. When I first met Keith, even when he had just started on the system, I thought he was 65 years old. And now he looks his age. You could probably pass for, like, if you told someone you were 45, I think they might believe it now. So we see this all the time. Dr. Tiffany, we see people who are using this system. We haven't seen them for a couple months. We run into them again at something. They look 10 years younger. So if you want to look younger than you are, I mean, yeah, pay attention. This is one of the amazing things about this. As Keith gets better and better, what we want to do, Keith, and I appreciate you sharing. So I'm going to keep you around to help answer questions. So we have some people in impact on sleep apnea. We repeatedly hear people. Johnny Grandison is on as well. Got off of his sleep apnea machine. Festus is on as well and can share his sleep apnea story if you'd be interested in that. But yes, helps a ton with sleep apnea. So my husband had that too. There's a question here that says, is the system for young people also? And does this help with anemia? And Dr. Dieter, the pediatrician, would you mind be open to address that?
Yes, yes, it's for young children also. Whatever, young children are not free of the epidemic of the diseases that we are facing today. We have young children now with fatty liver disease, obesity, pre-diabetes, even hypertension, all these chronic diseases that you will not see in adults. So it is safe for young children to take their two with any of these illnesses. Now, I don't know about anemia because the issue of anemia has to do with several different factors. So if you have anemia because you have iron deficiency, and if that iron deficiency is as a result of dysbiosis of your gut, yes, then this will help you. But if your anemia is because of maybe heavy menstrual periods, then this will. So it really depends on what the cause of the anemia is. If the cause of the anemia is in some way related to iron deficiency or in some way related to B12 deficiency, which are impacted by gut health, yes, it will. So I need to know more to be able to say categorically, yes, it will or it wouldn't. But in those other two situations, it will, and it's actually saving kids. I have 4 kids. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 2-month-old. The only kid who doesn't consume the products in my home is my 5-month-old. My 7-year-old, my 5-year-old, and my 2-year-old, they're all on this safely.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add something to the anemia? Because sometimes people with PCOS have heavy menstrual cycles or endometriosis. Again, we are seeing some improvement in those categories. So yeah, just like you said, Dr. Dieter, we'd want more information, but the level of impact is still a lot bigger than some would even think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's talk athletes. We have a lot of experience with athletes and this system.
We do.
We do. So athletes, we see people moving up their performance. We have a heavy weight lifter that has had his best, like personal best of his entire life on the system. I know my husband is that I showed you the him flexing his best personal best from a weightlifting of his entire life. We have people that will not train. First of all, we had a a doctor, a brain surgeon. I'm not making this up. We have a brain surgeon that once he tried Unimate, he's like, I'm not doing brain surgery without Unimate because it gave him the focus and the discipline and the endurance to be able to do that. So we also see that with your brain, but we also see that physically, that athletes are saying the same thing. Like they've never seen anything like this. Their performance has improved. Constipation, any constipation from all the fiber. So fiber, let's talk about that. So Jennifer answers some of this question. It could increase, you need to increase your fluid intake to make sure that you're dealing with fiber. Let's talk about overall, if you've been dealing with gut dysbiosis and you introduce 7 plants into your body and your body is not used to it, there's an adjustment period if your gut health is poor. This system does no harm. It only helps. And when people are starting something, they're seeing it, the system just highlights it, puts a spotlight on an existing gut problem that you have. It's not creating a gut problem for you, but what you need to do is work your way through that. So we're talking in case like holding up, like salt water is your best friend on this system. You may have been told if you have high blood pressure that you're supposed to stay away from salt. So salt water helps a lot with constipation, that feeling, some of the initial feelings that you may have, increasing your water intake. If you're really struggling, you would take half a packet of the fiber just to warm up. You don't want to stop taking it. So what happens when you introduce the 7 plants into your microbiome is that the stuff that's craving Pringles and Cheez-Its and processed foods is going to start to die off. And the part of your body that's craving plants and nutrition, they're going to proliferate. But if you stop, then those people die back. The good guys die back off, the bad guys start proliferating again. And so you just keep extending this process goes on and on. Just stick with it, be consistent. If you struggle, reduce the quantity, but keep doing it every day. Don't miss it. Don't miss a day on the fiber while your body's adjusting.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
to add to what Dr. Tiffany, if you wanted to add to that, I'll let you go.
Oh, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, to add to what Amory said, this is just um, um, it is a transient. Yes, you may experience constipation, but it is a very transient side effect, and is a transient side effect happening because the body has not been used to that amount of fiber. You know, normally God created us to eat fiber, consume fiber, but our foods are so processed we're not consuming enough. So now when you start introducing the right quantity of fiber into your diet, your colon makes this 1-2 surprise. Whoa,
Mhm.
like
Yes.
what is it that you're feeding me now? And so the colon now has to adjust to a load of fiber that it hasn't seen in decades, okay? Decades. And so there is that adjustment period. And during that adjustment period, you will have constipation, whereas the colon was meant to handle this fiber load, but has not seen it. It's just the same as if you start working out, you go to the gym. You go to the gym to what you have not worked out in a long time. You're not just gonna go and be able to bench press 100 pounds. No way. Because your muscles haven't seen that kind of a load. It has to work its way up to acclimatize. And usually that acclimatization period is usually 1 to 2 weeks, for most people. Some people drag on to 3 weeks, but as the colon acclimatizes and gets used to that constipation becomes history.
Mhm.
Well, can I add one little tidbit that I have learned in becoming a metabolic health consultant and using these products is that even the people that have a healthy lifestyle and have been doing a lot of veggies and a lot of fiber and protein, not fiber, but all the fiber,
Mhm.
they're the first ones to say, I don't know why I'm having trouble. But see, when you've been doing prebiotics or you've been eating maybe the same types of veggies, you still haven't been feeding your gut all the nutrients, all the phytonutrients. So you may have pockets that aren't getting treated. So even my people that are like, I know I have a healthy diet, I know my gut is okay. I'm finding that they actually need a little adjustment too, because they still need some help, which is why they're dealing with some metabolic issues. So I like to make sure we put that out there that what you probably are doing is not enough. You're not getting all the colors. You're not getting all the phytonutrients. It's hard to get all that.
The issue I found when I first started was um there was a couple day where it was a little rough, but I knew that it was gonna, in the long run, fix it. Well, I just recently relocated to Florida and most of my stuff was packed and I
Mhm.
missed a day or two of the fiber.
Mhm.
That was worse than the initial fixing, getting it on the right path.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that is good to know. Okay. It's kind of the reintroduction. You start again. Just enough time for it to die off. Your body's really working to heal. Jennifer says, that was me, Dr. Tiffany. As a vegan, I had short-term issues with constipation, which seems really weird, right? It seems like, wow, like you're a vegan, all of your diet is plant. We see vegans come into this and they do have an adjustment period, even though it's just plants. So that is interesting.
And
Caffeine,
a lot of it is the salt as well, putting the
yeah,
nutrients back in.
yeah, so true. So true. The the question, so caffeine, Dr. Wanda, I just called her Dr. Wanda, but Jennifer Wanda, let's address the caffeine sensitivity. I feel like this is something that comes up every time, so let's just get in front of it. The yerba mate has natural caffeine. That's how it grows, and there's nothing added caffeine, but it grows that way. And sometimes people are caffeine sensitive. Caffeine sensitivity, I've learned this too. Caffeine sensitivity and insulin resistance go together. So if you're caffeine sensitive, that's often because you are insulin resistant. And so in the same way that we talked about, you have to like start slow on adding this fiber. When you start adding the Unimate, this is the yerba mate, your body is going to start pushing some of that sugar out. It's going to become more sensitive to insulin, and you will become less hypersensitive to caffeine. But to get started, Dr. Tiffany is the best at walk us through how to get started if you're extremely caffeine sensitive.
Well, thanks, Anne Marie. It's a simple dose. You're just changing the dosing. And the only way you do that when you're dealing with the powder and liquid is to increase the liquid. And sometimes I have people decrease the powder. So instead of doing the 1 pack in a 20-ounce bottle, I sometimes have people do maybe a half a pack in the 20-ounce bottle, and depending how significant their sensitivity is, if it's something that throws them into atrial fibrillation, that's when your heart kind of goes out of rhythm or something, I may increase the fluid to 40 ounces. And we do that 4 or 5 days. And then we see how they tolerate that. And I've actually had people that I knew had AFib because I was their doctor when they were having AFib. And they were able to tolerate it. And then we'd increase it to a whole pack in 40 ounces. And then, if they can handle 20 ounces, then we're golden. And so it's just about playing with the dosage like you would with anything that you do, because everybody's body's just a little bit different.
I love that too. Everyone's metabolism is different. I get a question a lot that people are saying, well, how long is it going to take me to see results, lose weight? Everybody's metabolism is different. It seriously is different for everyone. Keith was off insulin in 2 days. Some people it takes them a little bit longer. Some of the key things that I've noticed is if you're a type 2 diabetic and you're using metformin, we're finding that metformin, that the prescription seems to be breaking people's fast. So part of what we're doing is intermittent fasting and creating a window, like a 14-hour window. And when people are taking their metformin in the morning, we see just a decrease. When they take that and they take the metformin with their first bite of food, we seem to see things move a lot faster for them in their metabolic recovery. Yeah, so kind of how much salt, like a pinch of salt. Yeah. All right. Well, if you have any more questions, please ask them. Do you recommend the fiber twice a day, once a day? So generally, people do the fiber differently. So there's not the protocol. The protocol is to use 2 Unamates and 1 balance, 1 fiber. Some people use fiber every time they eat. They take a balance. If they're putting food in their mouth, I typically eat 2 meals a day. And if I'm putting food in my mouth, I put a balance. I put a fiber in front of it. The protocol has you in one, so some people break it off between half and half. But what you want to do is the thing that's most consistent for you. If you have trouble remembering the balance, and when I hear people, they're like, I forget the balance. On a couple that, for a couple of weeks, you might have to put it out on your counter. If the person who puts it up, you might have to just put it out on your counter. I was just talking to my mom today. She's like, I keep forgetting to take it. And my mom's been using this for years now, right? And I'm like, set some fiber on your table where you're going to eat dinner. Set some fiber, put it in your silverware drawer. So when you go get a fork for dinner, you see the balance and you're reminded of doing that. You don't have to do this forever, but it takes a couple weeks to build the habit. Celtic, Baja salt. Yep, that sounds great. And then Festus, I'm going to ask you to unmute if you wanted to add anything, Dr. Festus.
Yes, Amory, thank you, Dr. Dida, thank you, Dr. Tiffany. I always say that this Unicity Field Grade system to me was very, I would say like a miracle to me because for almost 12 years, I've been having sleep apnea. So I had to wear this. It's like dentures, but you put it at night. And when you put it at night, you get it from a dentist, and it's like about $2,000. And you wear this before you sleep. And I had to wear this for the past 12 years. And literally, if I did not put this in my mouth, I will sleep just a little bit, wake up, and won't quickly get back to bed. And I'll be numbed. My hands will be numbed, and I'll be very exhausted, especially in the morning, and I'll be sleepy most of the day. But for the past, it's almost 5 months now, I would say, I have not had to wear this because of the Unicity Field Grade system. I sleep like a baby. I discovered that if I take my Unicity Field Grade, if I take my balance around the evening meal, it makes me sleep much better. So I get up in the morning energized, ready to go, and I have not had to wear this. So to me, that is a miracle. That is why I cannot stop talking about this, because there's no single, as a pharmacist, there is no single pill that you can take to correct sleep apnea. And it's just amazing to me because I see everybody that comes to the pharmacy, some of them picking up medications, sometimes up to 20 medications they have to take every day. And tell myself, out of these 20 medications, you might not even need up to 4 with the Unicity fee grade system. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. And
Thank
Dr.
you.
Festers is not someone who needed to lose a lot of weight. This is not a weight loss product. He looks basically the same now as he did before he started using it. You won't lose weight that you don't have to lose.
That's correct.
I
That's
know I've got to know Dr. Festus better. He's quite stylish. He's he dresses very, very nice, and I can see how putting in putting this in every night is not the most attractive thing to your wife likely. And part of what we're doing is we're helping people to this creates a great mood. The Unimate and the balance put people in a great mood. So we're saving marriages because people are nicer to each other. And when you don't have your spouse snoring next to you, that's also a much more attractive way to live too. So there's an
Yes.
all-encompassing thing that we're seeing as we change people's lives in this. And even Keith has a great relationship with his daughter, but talk about, I mean, I've never asked you this before, but I already know the answer. Has your relationship with your daughter and key people in your life changed, gotten
Oh,
better since you?
most definitely. It has improved tenfold. Right before I started it, she had been taking care of me most of my, recent life when she gets a phone call on the gender reveal party for my grandson and told that I'm not going to make it, that inherently puts a lot of stress on she's only 23.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it is drastically improved.
Yeah, feeling and what you said is really important too. This feeling of your family members not feeling like it's their responsibility to keep you alive and take care of you because we're taking care of ourselves when we use this system. We're taking our health into our own hands, which is what Dr. Dieter, as we close out, I mean, that's really what we're doing. We're reclaim your health. We're reclaiming our own health, and that is his brilliant slogan and statement. We're going to wrap up. I think all of our questions have been answered in the comments. If
There
someone
was
invited
was one.
Doctor, yeah, go ahead.
There was one asking about sprinkling the balance on your food. And I think, yeah, I think Dieter, you covered this. Because the fiber makes a matrix, we want to get it all together because that way it encompasses what you eat to decrease the amount of carbohydrates and cholesterol to get in your bloodstream. Sprinkling it on your food isn't going to do it. You need the cold water to activate that. Yeah, that would be an easy way to get around it, but I want to make sure we clarified that for anybody who ended up deciding they ordered it. I need them thinking that was going to do something.
Mix it in water and chug it. That's what our new process. Mix in water and chug it.
And I suppose you could make fiber popsicles, but I'm not sure how that would taste.
Yeah, yeah, it tastes excellent. It just would be
Yeah.
a different protocol. The system's easy to, if you drink water, all you're doing is opening 3 packets a day and you're mixing it in water and you're drinking it. That's how hard the system is. The products then take care of yourself. So it takes your appetite. You don't have to worry about anything else. Once you get ready, Dr. Tiffany has a great way of explaining this. Like you just start where you are, just get the products into your body for 30 days. Once you get them into your body, see if you can extend your fast a little bit longer. It happens naturally, but just see if you can, make a couple of other benefits in your life, add more water. We find by a couple months in, people, you don't have to exercise to see the benefit of this, but people start realizing they feel better. And they're like, you know what? I haven't felt like going out for a walk in 10 years. Now I feel like going out for a walk. We hear this all the time. No downside. There's no downside, no side effects, no negative side effects to this product. But you might have to buy new pants because your pants will be too big. It's true. And one final story before we close. We have a gentleman who's been using this system for about 4 months. His name is James Davis. He lives in Florida. When he went to take a flight to Indiana, they did not recognize his ID. Like, he looked so different in a couple months that they had to call 3 different people over, and they finally had to call a supervisor over because he was unrecognizable. His face did not match the scan from his picture because he had changed so much using the system. So when you take it seriously, you can be unrecognizable, and you might need to get a new picture. That's the first one. You need new pants, and James is going to have to get a new picture on his ID because he looks that different. All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Tiffany, would you mind closing us out? Just final words on we could use some help on our mission.
Yes, 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 yes. And I think I said this story a couple days ago. My mother just turned 74 this week, and she was talking to me solemnly, thinking, I did not think I was going to get to this age. Her aunts, her mother, they all passed at 49. I mean, I wonder how many people on this call are that close to that age or older, or can even understand that. And they all died of some sort of metabolic condition without having any other options. And so here I am nearing that part in my life too, and seeing the look on my mom's face and knowing that my father passed 20 years ago, diabetes complications, and he wanted something natural. All she said was, I wish I had more time with him. And just like her, because it's nearing around that time, I wish I had more time with him too. He wasn't there to see me cross the stage or my kids or any of that. And I know I'm not alone with this story. I know there's so many of us that have that type of situation. And so that's the whole point of this, is we have come across a natural solution that is giving people their lives back, giving people their family members back. And so if you know anyone who is one, just like my father was, just like maybe some of your family members are, and you see them lying in that hospital bed thinking, I have something, you visually can see them there, there's no reason for us not to share. And if that's you, there is nothing for you to lose. You just need to connect with the person that invited you on this call and reach out. We want to help you with that. And more importantly, we need your voice. There's too many people struggling, too many family members that we're losing on a daily basis, to where this is why we do this. This is why Deirdre does these calls 3 times a night. So I hope that inspires somebody. I mean, it does. That's why I get on here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming tonight, everyone. We'll see you again.
Tomorrow.
Our next call is tomorrow night on Monday night. We do these calls Sunday, Monday, and Friday at the same time, this exact same time. All right.
Yes,
Thank you
please.
so much.
So invite somebody tomorrow if you think they'll benefit from listening to this information.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
All right.